Hi, I'm Koos Tompe. Listen to weekly Dartscast and enjoy it.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Weekly Dartscast, sponsored by Dartwolf. I'm Alex Moss, and alongside me, as always, it is the Darts Driver King, Darts statistician, and currently second place in the Weekly Dartscast co-host Premier League Prediction League. Burton, DeWitt, how are you doing?
Back into my normal placing, it sounds like. I'm doing just fine. How are you, Alex?
Well, given I'm top of our prediction league, I'm doing rather well, thank you. And also, I've got my first darts-related trip of the year coming up this week. I'm sure we'll touch on that later. But let's get into the show. We've got plenty to discuss. Two guests joining us this week. The first back on the show after a 6-year absence, one of the debutants in the World Seniors Championship this week, Darren Johnson, and a player more local to me, plays for one of the Super League teams that's local to me. But on top of that, he is once again a PDC tour card holder, Stephen Burton, chatting with Matthew Kiernan, the darting nerd, later on. But let's start with a look ahead. We're already into February, but it's the first weekend of the Pro Tour this weekend. A lot of darts still to come. So what are you most looking forward to in the darting year that is 2023?
There's so much to look forward to. And the Pro Tour start, it's a fresh season for everyone. And it means, well, we don't know what's going to happen. And that's always a good place to be when the year starts. What am I looking forward to? First, what does Josh Rock do for an encore? Because he was brilliant last year. Even though it took him about a month to get a win on the tour, he was losing to Simon Whitlock and everyone else with over 100 average at the start of the year last year. By the end, everyone knew how good he was. But where does he go now this year? Does he pick up where he left off? Or does he regress a little bit? And we don't know until we see him play. You've got to think he's going to progress. We got to think that a big television breakthrough is bound to come. But it starts by doing well in the Pro Tour events, building some momentum, building some confidence leading into the UK Open, continuing, to move up the rankings, move towards the top 32 in the world. So I want to see what he does for an encore. Also, looking forward to seeing how some of the new tour card holders do. Nobody had heard of Pascal Ruprecht before Q School. Did well enough that he didn't even have to play the final day to get his tour card through the Order of Merit, considering he almost didn't even enter to begin with. How's he going to do, though, stepping up and playing the 127 other best players in the world day in, day out? If Q School's anything to go by, he's going to be a pest for his opponents. We don't know until he does how he takes that step up. But among other new tour card holders, Richard Veenstra, former BDO number 1 or WDF number 1, I think he was BDO number 2. How does he do finally getting to play the PDC tour for the first time? Adam Smith-Neal, a major winner over in the BDO, getting his tour card for the first time. And then also some people who win their cards back. Stephen Burton, who you mentioned, who we'll have on back after a few years off the tour. Ronnie Hybrecht's back after a few years. Karol Sedlacek, who did phenomenally last year without a tour card. Just like Josh Rock, how does he do building on last year? Obviously, his ranking reset to 0, which was unfortunate because he came within one match of cracking the top 64 overall, and he was there in the race for the World Grand Prix, despite not having a tour card. Now he's back to 0 on all the Order of Merits. But if he continues playing like he did in Q School, like he did pretty much all of last year, he will be a force. And of course, Corey Cadby coming back after a couple years, more than a couple years now away. In his 1 year that we really saw him, he only went and made a major final and won one of his first events. So there's a lot to look forward to from those new tour card holders. And then, of course, what does Michael Smith do this year now that he's world number 1? If we can take from the first few weeks anything, it looks like he's still hungry. He's still pushing on. He still wants to not just be number 1, but to consolidate that and build the CV that Michael Van Gerwen, Peter Wright, Geraint Price, the 3 people right behind him in the rankings, already have. Right now, he only has the 2 majors. What does he do, again, for an encore like Josh Rock? But now he's at the top of the game. He is number 1. Does he continue to push on? Does he add a couple more majors? Does he widen the gap between himself and Peter Wright and Michael Van Gerwen, who are on his heels? So those are questions that we won't know early on. The UK Open, the only major in the first half of the year before we get to the World Match Play at the end of July. But we can see where his head's at and where his game's at. going through these next few months, and especially in the Premier League, where he's going to be playing the best in the world night in, night out.
Got to say, to begin with, it doesn't feel like we've really had much of a break, and that's why we've only just got this question in now, because particularly in the PDC, the top level of the game, 9 days after Michael Smith completed darts, in his own words, lifting the Sid Waddell Trophy, becoming the new world number one, he was playing in Bahrain, the World Series over there, with 7 other PDC invited players and the local players there as well. Then we had a World Series in Denmark. We had the Masters the weekend after. And the weekend just gone, that was a rare blank weekend for the PDC. We had no tournaments at any level that I could see from them. And now we've had the players that played in those events at the start of the year. They've had a little bit of a break to recharge the batteries. They've had a weekend off, ready for this first lot of Players' Championship events. And of course, that is if they decide to play in them. We're going to see players skip more events this year, particularly the players at the top end. But I think back to when we answered this question this time last year, what were we looking forward to? And I said having that full calendar back, a full 12 months of darts after the 2 disrupted years that were 2020 and 2021. That was the big thing for me. And almost everything came back last year. But one tour that didn't was the PDC Asian Tour, and that comes back next month. We've got the first lot of tournaments in Japan taking place. That's going to be good to see that come back after a 3-4 year break. Before then, I said I'd mention it, but this week the World Seniors is back, their World Championship, and I'll be at the Circus Tavern for the first 2 days of that. So I can't wait to see a lot of players that I've grown up watching on TV, some that I've grown up watching via YouTube videos, old videos on them. And of course, the GOAT Coast Stompe is going to be there as well. I don't know if anyone else knew about that. But away from that, from a WDF standpoint, we've got their World Championship coming back in December at Lakeside. It feels like a long way off at the moment, but I'm intrigued to see how that event is going to be received going on at that time of the year, just before Ali Pali. But that is a long way off. And as far as the PDC, one player I'm looking forward to seeing, and it's kind of been a bit quiet around him for these last few weeks since he won his tour card back at Q School, but Corey Cadby makes his return this weekend if he's on the list of entries. I don't think they're out at the time of recording this on this Monday evening, but having Corey Cadby back on the tour, that's going to be an exciting prospect for 2023. He is an entertaining player to watch, and I just hope some of the magic that he produced in his first run, he's going to be able to produce again this year, because if he does, it's just going to add to what is already a very competitive field at that top end, and one which has a pool of players that is growing. We've seen the last few years players, more and more of them come to the fore, win these big titles in the PDC. Johnny Clayton, Dimitri van den Berg, Jose de Souza, Chris Dobie, Joe Cullen, Ross Smith, Michael Smith only a few months ago with that Grand Slam. Danny Noppert, who's going to be the next one? Will it be a Josh Rock, who you mentioned? Will it be someone else? And with Josh Rock, is he going to kick on further from that debut year? And just lastly, from one player at the start of their career in Josh Rock to one who is in the latter years, but his last game only a few weeks ago averaged 111. Gary Anderson, how much are we going to see him play this year? Because for the first time in a while, he's got a fight on his hands to get in the match play. So it's going to be interesting to see, without having the Premier League to play in every week for the next 4 months, how much is he going to commit to the tour in these early months as well?
He might have averaged 111, but he got the exact same result I would have gotten in that match. Oh, I would not have averaged anywhere near. I wouldn't have averaged 61, let alone 111.
I don't think he lost 10-0 either.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. I would have lost 10 to -1. I would have had to have been lucky to get to 0. But 5 new winners on the Pro Tour in 2022. Who are your leading picks to get off the mark this year with their first PDC senior title?
Oh, that is a hard one. We did this question, I think, the year before last, and we didn't do too badly, I seem to recall, with our picks. So one player I do remember us mentioning, and somehow we are at the start of 2023 and a new season, and he's still a possible answer to this question, and that is the highest ranked player without a senior PDC title, and that is Gabriel Clemens, who only 5 weeks ago made the semi-finals of the World Championship, and some people were saying that he was a shoe-in, a guarantee to get in the Premier League this year as well. Well, he's not in the Premier League, but he has to be high on anyone's list, I think, for this question to tick off another milestone, and that is become a PDC title winner on that main tour. I think he's going to do it this year, and I think the next highest, I believe, is another German, Martin Schindler, and this is his 3rd year back on the tour now, and he's in the top 32. He's in the Pro Tour top 16 as well, which is an impressive feat in itself. And as you mentioned, I think last week, the week before, the stats record, Daryl Pilgrim, top of the Players' Championship averages for 2022. Matthew Kiernan even bought Daryl a mug with the Dart Connect average leaderboards on it, with Daryl's name at the top. But after him, you look at the list of players from last year, high on that list on the averages who didn't win a title, you have yet to win a title. And one name that springs to mind is Andrew Gilden. And I think a lot of darts fans, they'd love to see Goldfinger end that weight for a first PDC title. And it dates back a while now. We had Andrew on the show towards the end of last year, and I think he said his first final in the PDC against Stephen Bunting, one of the first ones around 2014, 2015 time. He said that Stephen took out a 161 to beat him in that final, and he's got close a few times since then. You look back to last year and he had 3 finals, 2 on the floor, 1 on the Euro Tour, and all 3 of them ending 8-6 against him. So he was not far away at all. And if it does happen this year, it is going to be a special day, because maybe the date will forever be known as Andrew Gilden Day or Goldfinger Day or Thumbs Up Day. Who knows? But hopefully that is a problem that we are going to have to worry about when he gets over the line this year. And I was looking back at last year. I think there was 6 or 7 others that made finals on the Pro Tour last year that were looking for their first title. The likes of Roby John Rodriguez, Martin Lukeman, Gian Van Veen as well. He's a player that didn't have a tour card, but he's got one after winning one at European Q School. So I'll narrow it down to 3 players, and I'll go with Gabriel Clemens, I'll go with Andrew Gilden, and I'll go with a new tour card holder, Gian Van Veen, to get his first one. They're my 3 picks that I'm going to nail down to win their first senior title in 2023. So good luck, gents. You're probably going to need the luck now as well.
Yeah, and of course you took most of the people I was going to say. But no, I had a few others though that I'll discuss. I won't repeat anyone. Even though I'm going second here, I'll throw down the gauntlet and pick 3 people that you didn't pick. And I guess in the end, you said you weren't going to go with Martin Schindler, right? You chose to go with Gabriel Clemens?
Yes.
All right. So since you left me Martin Schindler, I'll go with Martin Schindler. And I mean, you said everything I would have said about him. I mean, he's right now in the Euro Tour seeds, and he looked on the cusp of winning a title last year. I think he does break through this year. Since winning back his tour card now 2 years ago, he's really a different player. He was good before, but now he's really upped his game another level. He's confident. He's professional well beyond his years, and I think that title is coming. I think it's coming at some time this year. So he'll be my top 32 to go. You didn't mention the other top 32 player who doesn't have a title, Alan Suter, but I'm not going to tip him just yet. We still haven't seen him do his best on the Pro Tour. We've seen him do his best on the televised stage. I do think we'll see him up his game in the Players' Championship event and maybe get to some more Euro Tours, which will help him move towards qualifying for some of the other majors. But I don't know if he's yet ready to win one of these events. There's just a little bit of consistency that's missing in his game, so I'm not going to tip him. But I'll go with someone who's been around for a while, but really rebounded last year, and that's Jermaine Watamena. It looked like he was dropping way down the rankings, and he has dropped down. He was up to almost the top 20 in the world before the pandemic. But once the pandemic hit, his game really disappeared, and he struggled to qualify for the World Championships for a couple years there. But last year, he had by far his best year since 2019, and it looked like he was getting back to that level that he had been at. And where he had been was he made a couple Pro Tour finals. He made a bunch of Pro Tour semifinals. He was top 16 in the Pro Tour Order of Merit, getting into all the Euro Tour events for a couple years. I don't think he is quite there yet, but I think he's moving in that direction again. And maybe this time he goes one step further. It's not just getting to a final. It's not just getting to a bunch of semifinals, but maybe this is the year that he does make that extra step and win a title. I think his game is getting to that point where that is a legitimate possibility again. And I'll also go with one of the new tour card holders to match what you did there. And I think it will come as no surprise which new tour card holder I'm going to mention, since I've been talking him up quite a bit, and that's Karol Sedlacek. I don't know. I don't necessarily think he is going to win a title this year, but his A game is certainly good enough. His B game will certainly get him through most matches, and he's been playing well enough to do that for some time now. I think Karol Sedlacek's worth a look. Also, another person I've been talking up, not a new tour card holder. I'm not going to pick him since I've picked my 3, but I'll also give a shout out to Boris Kursmar. I think this is his breakthrough year. I think this is the year that we see him not just continue to be a tough opponent, but actually see him get into either the World Match Play or the World Grand Prix. He's in a good position right now. If he can get it, if he can get that first title, well, then he's probably in one of those events. At least a couple deep runs, I think we'll see from him some semifinals and the like. I'd love to be wrong and see him actually win a title, but I think he'll be in that position, at least in that conversation at some point this year.
And now we'll move on to our first guest on this week's show, and it is with Matthew Kiernan, the darting nerd. He's having a chat with one of the new tour card holders. He's back on the tour for this year. Here's his chat with Stephen Burton.
Well, another new tour card holder joins us now on the weekly Dartscast. Stephen Burton. Stephen, congratulations. How are you feeling?
Yeah, feeling really good, and just can't wait for the next 3 weeks to fly by and get started on the tour again.
Fantastic. And just looking at your 2022, it'd be great if you could tell us a bit more about your experience on the Modus Super Series, as it's now known, and the Live Darts League. How has that helped and improved your game?
Yeah, massively. I think had some really good results on there, and fortunate to win a couple of weeks, and won one of the Champions weeks as well. That concept is very good. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to play that now, which I'm not too disappointed about, because I would much rather be in the position that I'm in now. So but anyone who gets a chance to do that, it certainly helps you bring on your game, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's great to hear, and we do also, of course, have to mention the GDL, because they'll tell me off if I don't mention that. How was the online darts? I mean, obviously we all did a bit of that during the lockdown, but I know you kept up that particular practice. How has that helped as well in terms of your practice?
Yeah. I mean, it's just something else there. Obviously we all like to go out and play darts at competitions and things like that, but just sometimes it's quite convenient just to have an odd game at home once a week, and I've pretty much been with them from the start. Obviously played a lot in the lockdown era, but sort of now we're sort of out of that era. I still do to try and play sort of like once a week, and it's just another night of darts, and it sort of just keeps you motivated, really.
That's great. So we'll now move on to Q School. You're straight into stage 2 because of your performances, of course, on the Challenge Tour. Is that difficult going into stage 2 cold, knowing that there are sort of 80 other players that are warmed up? Is that a difficult, different mindset?
Personally, for me, I find it an advantage because others have been there for 3 days. Obviously, the previous year that I went into the first stage and come through into the last stage, and 7 days is a very, very long time. It's just, you get very fatigued by sort of day 5 and day 6, and it's just mentally draining. So, to be honest, that didn't concern me that others, had been playing for 3 days before. I was more than happy just to sort of go in there fresher than them, really, and I think that just sort of, I wouldn't say gave me the edge, but I just felt confident that I would probably have more in the tank if I had to go the full 4 days, which obviously I did. So, I think that worked out quite well.
On day 1, of course, you made your move to the semi-finals, 5 really well-earned victories. Which of those stood out to you?
I mean, I think all the victories, really. I mean, you just, whoever you're facing, you just kind of take it on board. I mean, obviously, I played Fallon, which has a bit of interest in the room. A lot of people tend to watch those games, but that didn't really sort of worry me too much. I mean, she didn't sort of play her best, and I think I went 5-1, 5-2 up, and sort of let her come back in a little bit, but managed to sort of close the game out. But I was a little bit disappointed in the way I played against Aaron Monk. I probably just ran out of steam in the end. It had been quite a long day, and played a few matches, and so I don't know how he done it, because obviously he'd played 5 matches the previous day. I think he won 12 matches, so his stamina is obviously better than mine.
Well, yes, and going into day 2 and then day 3. So it was an early exit on day 2. And does that put more pressure in when you're going into day 3, because you're in the mix at that point?
Yeah, I think they probably always say day 3 is kind of the moving day, where people always, say, oh, it's the last day. But I think day 3, you kind of just want to put yourself in a good position, which, I had another good run. Probably was disappointed from day 2 because I didn't play particularly well when I lost to Jack. And his opponent after he beat me, he sort of won that, not really playing very well. So I was kicking myself a little bit there. But, I was in the points table coming into the last day, and my mindset was people are chasing me. I'm not chasing them. So it was in my hands, which is always nice.
Does that add an extra element of pressure? Because I've spoken to a few of the new tour card holders, the ones that won. There's nothing that sort of replicates that at any other time of the year. In terms, it's almost like golf, really. Yeah. I mean, going into the last day, it's in my hands, and you're kind of thinking, well, if you don't come through this, then it's another year you're not on the tour, and those 12 months, is a long wait. So there is a lot of pressure, but when you've kind of played, I've been in and out of the tour over the few years and topped the tour up, so I am sort of getting used to that pressure. I'm still learning the game at that level. So, there is a lot of pressure, but, I just sort of dealt with it the best I can, and thankfully I came out the other side this time. And so you beat John Henderson to earn a point, and then Nicky Denoon. Was there a moment when you realised, I've actually done this now?
I think when I beat John Henderson was probably sort of like 95% that I was in. And I think it was the next game after John, I was 3-1 up, and someone just sort of gave me the thumbs up from the table that I was sitting on, just to say, you're 100% safe. So that was a relief, and I managed to win that game. And then the game after, I was sort of just wasn't really thinking about darts. I was just happy to get the card, and was just more thinking about getting home, really.
Well, that's great to hear, and just a few messages of well done, I hear. Yes,
loads and loads. Yeah, phone. My phone was just constantly going off, which was nice. So spent probably the next sort of 12 to 24 hours just responding to everyone. But yeah, it was a great feeling.
Amazing. And so just lastly, a word for your sponsors, friends, supporters that have helped you in this journey.
Yeah, I mean, obviously management and MDA Promotions, they've sort of been with me for the last 3 years, and I've just signed another 3-year deal with them. All shirt sponsors, obviously GDL was one of them, Waveney Trucks, friends, family, wife, everyone's been so supportive of me over the last, 3 or 4 years really, when the journey started. So, it's nice to sort of give them something back, and hopefully the next 2 years I can just sort of kick on now.
Well, thank you very much, Stephen, for your time. Really appreciate it, and good luck for when the season starts in a couple of weeks.
No worries. Thanks very much.
Thanks again to Stephen for joining us. Now on to our Premier League picks, and the Premier League Roadshow rolls into the Motorpoint Arena in Cardiff this Thursday, and judging by the current standings in one of our questions of the week, what will you be watching on Thursday, we're going to lose a lot of our listeners at this point, as only 63% of you are going to be watching the Premier League this week. 30% are going to have the seniors on, and 7% are going to be watching Coronation Street. So for the 63% that are going to be watching the Premier League, let's get to our picks for the quarterfinals. And last week we both got a solid 1 out of 4 correct each. Can we do better this week? First up, it is the world champion, the world number 1, Michael Smith, against the former Premier League champion, Johnny Clayton. How do you see the first game of the night going?
I mean, both of them obviously need a win after last week, because it's a long season, and just because you're on 0 points after 2 matches doesn't mean you're finished. But it is tough, and especially since Michael Smith got into such a deficit last year, there's always that possibility that in the back of his mind he's going to be thinking, is this going to happen again if he goes and loses this match? And when you mix that, Johnny Clayton will have the crowd behind him, and Clayton's playing pretty darn well right now as well. It's a tough ask, and I think it's going to be just a little bit too much. I don't think Michael Smith will fall as far back before the season, by the midpoint of the season, as he did last year. It will be one of those storylines going into night 3 if he loses, and I think he loses. I'm going to go 6-5 to the Ferret. I think they both average over 100, like they both did in defeat last week. But I think the hometown crowd is going to carry the Ferret to the victory.
Well, I have to be honest, I wrote down the intro for this question talking about it being in Cardiff, and then when I was making my picks, thinking what I was going to go, if I completely forgot about where the Premier League was this week. But I'm going to stick with my predictions that I did regardless. And the record between these two players, going off of Darts Oracle, pretty even, 10 wins each, excluding any World Cup games. But Johnny Clayton, he's won the last 3. The Premier League last year, it was a 3-3 split, so fairly even between these two. And as you say, both lost last week in the first round, didn't pick up any points, both lost with 100 plus average. And I'm going to lean towards the world champion. I think having the rest at the weekend, that's going to serve him well. And he's been non-stop since winning that world championship, doing the World Series events, doing the Masters. And okay, you can say Johnny Clayton's been the same, but the media commitments, the other commitments that have come Michael Smith's way since winning that world championship, I don't think he's had too much chance to really sit back and have a minute to look back at it all and have a bit of a rest. But he did have that at the weekend. I don't think he did much. I'm guessing so anyway. And I think he's going to come out and make up for last week's defeat. And I think it's going to be tight, like you say, but I'm going to go 6-4 to Michael Smith.
Second match, Nathan Aspinall off of a win last week against Geraint Price, going against the world number 2, who lost in the first round to the eventual winner, Peter Wright. How do you see this one?
Well, I was having a look at the records again, and Nathan Aspinall, he's got a really good record against Peter Wright. 8 wins from 13 games, and he's won 4 of the last 5, all 4 of their last meetings on TV. Nathan Aspinall has come out on top, and that includes a Premier League semi-final in the playoffs in 2020 and both meetings in 2021 in the Premier League, and continuing that trend of losing with 100 plus averages. Peter Wright, he was the same last week, losing to Chris Dobey with a 103 average in that one. But I want to see a world number 1 versus world number 2 showdown. Not that I'll be watching it unless someone in the Circus Tavern has it on their phone near me, but if my first pick is going to be right, then I've got to go for the same here to get that wish. So I'm going to go same scoreline again, 6-4 to the world number 2, and we are going to get a Michael Smith Peter Wright game in the semi-finals.
Ooh, should I go against you so that again, and make it Johnny Clayton, Nathan Aspinall? No, I'm not going to. I think Peter Wright, again, he lost, but he played well, and he's been playing really, really well right now. I don't just think Peter Wright wins this match. I think Peter Wright goes and wins the night. So obviously I'm picking him to win this one. It's not going to be a Michael Smith Peter Wright. It will be a Johnny Clayton Peter Wright, because I've already picked Johnny Clayton. But I think Peter Wright is going to absolutely smash Nathan Aspinall. That 8-5 edge to Aspinall aside, I think Peter Wright wins this one 6-1.
Third game of the night, and it's another Welshman up on that Cardiff stage. We've got Geraint Price going up against the newcomer Chris Dobey. How do you see this one going?
We talked last week about Chris Dobey's Masters title, and we mentioned that every single match was between a 94 and a 97 average. What did he do night 1 in Belfast? He won the night. Every single match, this time between a 95.82 and a 97 average. But he continues it going. That's now 8 matches in a row that he's averaged about the same, and that's always going to be difficult to beat. It is beatable. And any one of these players, if they play well, will likely beat a 95, 96 average. But, Peter Wright averaged nearly 104 and still didn't beat it. Geraint Price, there are question marks right now around his game. And maybe being back in Wales will help him, maybe not. But I think Dobey's going to continue to ride this hot hand that he has right now. And I think he's going to average somewhere between 94 and 97 again. And I think he's going to beat the world number 4, giving up 4 legs to him, but winning 6.
Well, I'll go different as well, and a lot of this is new for Chris Dobey. It's his first full Premier League season. A lot of challenges coming his way over these next 16, 17 weeks. And last week, you've got to say, he passed all 3 challenges with flying colours. It was a first TV meeting with Peter Wright. He wins it. A first TV meeting with Nathan Aspinall, and he beats him. And then in the final, he avenges that heavy defeat at Ali Pali to Michael van Gerwen and wins the final, wins the whole of the first night outright. And this week, got another challenge in front of him, Geraint Price, a man that he's never beaten before. He's 0-6 on the head-to-head, 6 wins for Price, 0 for Dobey. And judging off last week, you've got to say Geraint Price not quite firing at 100%, but I think like Michael Smith, the rest will have done him some good. And you know what? I'll be boring. I'm going to go for the top 4 to win their quarterfinals. So I've sport my answer for the next one. But Price, he needs to bounce back. So I'm going to go 6-3 to the Iceman.
Well, then I guess I won't have to ask you about the last match. Instead, I can ask you, what are you going to be watching Thursday night?
Well, I won't be watching this game, and I'll just touch on the last one Michael van Gerwen, Dimitri van den Berg, and I mentioned in the last one about how Chris Dobey got revenge on that defeat to Michael van Gerwen at the World Championship. That's the task facing Dimitri van den Berg here, who also lost to MVG last week in Belfast in the semi-finals, and there was a 15-point difference in the averages. Michael van Gerwen 106 to Dimitri's 91, and a 91 average is just not going to cut it against MVG. And he started off hot against Johnny Clayton. Dimitri did in that first game of the Premier League season, got the win there, but he's going to need the same here. And I'm going to go for the green man to complete my top 4 lineup, and I'm going to go 6-3 to MVG.
Yeah, I'll be watching the Dutch Cup myself, see if Ajax can advance again. But how do I see this one? It's a rematch of last week's semifinal where there was 14 points in the averages to Michael van Gerwen. It's a rematch of the Players' Championship last 16 back in November, Players' Championship final last 16, that is, where Michael van Gerwen won it with a mere 13 points in the average. And it's a rematch of the World Championship semifinal. Do you remember who won that one? Oh, yeah. Michael van Gerwen won that one with a mere, I think that was 11 points in the averages, 12 points in the averages. So they've played a lot recently, and it's not really been all that close. But that doesn't mean anything today. That's the past. This is now. And Dimitri van den Berg is going to pull the upset 6-5. Despite maybe there being a dozen points in the averages again, who knows? But I'm going to go Dimmy to finally turn it around against the Green Machine.
Well, that's our picks for Thursday night. A reminder of our last man standing competition. We've got 39 entries left now after week 1. We lost a lot of you last week, so head on over to weeklydartscast.com to see if you're still in. And remember, you can't pick the same player twice. So if you went with Chris Dobey last week, you've got to choose a different player. If you went with Michael van Gerwen last week, you've got to choose someone else. So check if you're still in, and if you want to enter again this week, same as last week, retweet our pin tweet, share this podcast for us, reply hashtag last man standing and the player that you've chosen, and the last listener left will give a Premier League shirt of your choice from the 2023 lineup of players. So good luck to everyone left in the competition, and we'll be back in a moment with some World Seniors chat. But before then, let's hear from one of the players that is going to be playing in the World Seniors this week. He's making his debut. He's back after a 6-year absence on the show. Here's our chat with DJ Darren Johnson. I'm pleased to say we're joined by one of the debutants in the World Seniors Championship this week, Darren Johnson. Thanks for joining us again, Darren. How you doing?
I'm doing great, mate. How the devil are you doing?
Doing good, thank you. And let's just start with the World Seniors. We're talking on this Monday evening, just 3 days before you step onto the Circus Tavern stage. How are you feeling now, only a few days away from it?
I'm feeling absolutely great. I'm looking forward to it, and I think it's going to be a cracking tournament.
Well, we'll come back to this week later, but let's first rewind back. And we said just off air a moment ago that we last had you on the show back on our 11th episode. It was March 2017. You'd just made your first final in the PDC. You'd had a win over Michael van Gerwen as well. Things were going well for DJ, weren't they?
They were, yeah, they were at that time, but, you know, it's a long time ago, and there's a lot's happened. There's a lot of water under the bridge, and we're here now, and we are where we are.
Well, just going back to that time, it was a few months later, you pushed Peter Wright all the way to a decider, right? That was on the Euro Tour. You made a quarter-final. You made the Players' Championship finals that year as well, 2017, but you missed out on the World Championship. How disappointed were you to miss out, given the start of the year that you'd had?
I was really disappointed. What happened that year, I tore a rotator cuff in my arm. So the back end of the year, I was playing injured. I would, muscle rub and tiger balm and painkillers, and nothing worked. And my game, I really struggled for. And it took about 18 months to 2 years to heal. It was a really terrible injury at a terrible time.
Yeah, I remember listening to an interview that you did recently with our friends at Inside the WDF. You mentioned that arm injury, which really did set you back. Do you know how it happened at all?
I started a property business, and I think I was swinging a sledgehammer, which I shouldn't have been doing because, I had people who should have been swinging sledgehammers for me, but you get stuck in and you think you can do everything. And obviously the older you get, you're not 21 anymore, and it was just one of them things, just an injury in a bad place that just took a long time to heal.
And how is the injury now? You said it set you back for 18 months. Is things, are they all good now?
Well, yeah, I'm absolutely perfect now, and I'm probably healthier than I've been for a long time. I mean, I do 100 lengths swimming at the backs every day, and I'm from my age now. I'm 58 this year, but I'm fitter than I've been for 20 years probably.
Glad to hear it. Well, after you lost your tour card at the end of 2018, you went back to Q School, and for the next 2 years you came within only a few wins of getting your tour card back. And as someone who's had success at Q School in the past, how tough is it? Does it get more difficult each year?
Yeah, the younger players coming in are absolutely, they're mustard. And, for an older player that going up against these young guns coming in who are absolutely fired up every single game, it's tough. And I'm not as good as I was when I was, 15, 20 years younger. And it's a young man's game now.
Well, back then when you were first starting out, you probably weren't expecting to be playing darts with a webcam showing your dartboard at home. But in 2020, we had the lockdowns and you were quite active with the online darts. Was it something that you took to straight away, or did it take some getting used to?
No, I took to it straight away. I always used to practice at home, and then I actually enjoyed playing in lockdown. In fact, I played 34 nights in a row. I played in lockdown in online darts, and I was having a glass of wine and a few beers, and I probably played too much because I think at the end of lockdown I was borderline alcoholic.
During the lockdowns as well, and this is probably where it's come from, we saw the birth of DJ's Bar. Talk us through that, and how much time do you spend in there practicing these days?
Yeah, 1 hour, an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, but every day. But to be fair, I think it's too much, and I've cut it down a little bit now. I'm doing every other day now, because every single day it's too much and it gets boring, and you just start, you just get bored with it. So my attention span's not the best these days. So, I don't practice as much now as I have been doing. I think I've over-practiced this last year, so I'm cutting it down a bit now.
Well, when events did start to come back, we saw you start to play on the WDF circuit, travelling to events all around Europe, along with Martin Turner. He called it the last of the summer wine tour. How did that tour come about?
I don't know. I think we were down at probably Q School, I think, if I can remember. It might have been at Q School, it might have been first challenge tour, and there must be more to life than this. Let's get about a bit. And I think it was like an England Open at Chelsea or something like that. And I said, "You fancy doing this?" And they were like, "Yeah, why not? So let's enter it." And to be fair, we went with an open mind, but absolutely really enjoyed it. A great bunch of people, and that goes for the officials and the players. And we really enjoyed it, and we did one, did another, and it just carried on from there.
Good times. Well, yeah, a lot of years you spent playing within the PDC, set up the Pro Tours, then the Challenge Tours, the majority of them being in England. So how did you find that travelling side of the WDF circuit, going to places like Denmark, Sweden, Malta, Switzerland?
Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. Different places, different people, but all good people, all darts people, really friendly, absolutely great. Absolutely enjoyed every minute of it.
Oh, 2021, we also saw the birth of the World Seniors Tour, and last year in October you picked up your first title on there. So what's it been like playing in those weekend events and probably seeing some familiar faces that you might not have seen for a little while?
The first weekend were absolutely fantastic. Seeing players you've not seen, Jason Clark, Colin Monk, players like that you've not seen for ages, and I've enjoyed the seniors that much. I'll prioritise that over the next 12 months. I'm enjoying the tour. Prize money's not great, but the tour is still in its infancy, and I'm going to give it time and see how it evolves. But where the seniors have done the business is the TV events. I think there's 4 TV events they've got now, but it's just all out to do. Give the players that play the tour, give them more places, cut back on the invites, make it 50-50 invites, give the players that are going up and down the country playing in these tour events, if they give them, a good shot, I think the seniors will absolutely go from strength to strength and be superb.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. And this week we've got 8 spots within the 32 field of players that are going to come from those qualifiers, those events. And of course, you won one of those titles. You also won a WDF ranking title as well, the Northern Ireland Open last year. What did both of those wins mean to you?
I think the Northern Ireland Open, that's probably my biggest win in my career, to be honest. I played well all day in that. I had a great final. I just picked Nick Kenny in the deciding leg, a brilliant young Welsh player who's got a great future ahead of him, and I absolutely love winning that. Superb.
Well, let's get on to this year, 2023, and you're going to be playing in not one but 2 World Championships. You've also qualified for the WDF World Championship in December. So how much are you looking forward to playing at the Lakeside at the end of the year?
I am looking forward to it, but I'm a bit arsed off with them, to be honest. When, we played all last year for that, and then all of a sudden it just gets moved to December. I sort of get why they did it, but the way it came out, it was sort of a bombshell, just an announcement out of the blue. You feel like the WDF, it's a bit of a secret society. One trouser leg rolled up, funny handshakes. I don't even know who's in charge of the WDF. You tell me who's in charge of it.
Well, I think we had Richard Ashdown was doing quite a lot to begin with, and I think he's resigned over the Christmas period. Yeah. Nick Rolls is one of the main people, I think, at the moment. But as you say, I think the last announcement we had from the WDF regarding Lakeside, it was that it was going to be after the first quarter of this year. So I'm guessing you were quite surprised that they've pushed it all the way back to December at the end of the year.
Yeah, I am. It was, like I said, it came as a bit of a bombshell, and I was really pissed off at the time. But the more I think about it, right, yeah, I look forward to December now, and it's a good time to have it. But the way it was announced were absolutely shocking, to be honest. But it is what it is, and we'll deal with it, and we'll move on. And I'm looking forward to December.
Definitely. Well, you are ticking off these historic venues in darts. Eventually, we've got Lakeside in December, but before then, it is the Circus Tavern in February. The draw was made a week or so ago now, and we saw that you stuck around to watch it after the qualifiers had finished. Larry Butler in the first round. What was your reaction to the draw?
Larry Butler's a bit of a legend in darts, and he's probably the greatest American player ever. In fact, North America, there's 2 players spring to mind. John Part and Larry Butler, but from the USA, Larry Butler is arguably the greatest American player ever. So, and I know he beat my mate Dennis Priestley in the match play final years ago, a long time ago, probably round about just after the Second World War, to be honest.
You mentioned your friend Dennis Priestley. I was going to mention him as well. When we last spoke, you said how you travelled with him for a number of years. Have you two spoke recently ahead of this week? Has he give you any advice?
Yeah, he sent me a message yesterday, just wishing me good luck and just telling me to enjoy it. And for me, it's a shame that he's not in it, because Dennis, he's not thrown the dart in 2 years, but he could pick them up, and in 3 days, he'd be a contender. I miss touring with him, to be honest. I miss making his coffee. I miss getting sent to the shop to get him a sandwich. and stuff like that. But, that were all career building for me.
For players not on the PDC tour, there's a lot more opportunities these days. The seniors, WDF, Modus League, ADC, and so on. You said before you'd always been a hobby darts player. Work came first, then you started to work part-time, made the darts more of a priority. So what's the work darts balance like right now?
Well, I'm fully retired now. I decided after lockdown that was it. I've made some shrewd investments that mean I don't really have to go to work. So it's just chill out, enjoy life, play darts. If there's a tournament I want to go to it, I'm going to go to it. If there's a tournament that I don't fancy, I'm not going to go to it. I'm going to enjoy it and take everything as it comes.
Fair play. Well, two more questions before we let you go. I'm sure you're not looking past your first round opponent, but you'd be forgiven for looking at the draw, seeing a potential second round meeting with Phil Taylor if you two both win your first round game. So how special would that be to play Phil on the Circus Tavern stage, we're assuming, on that Saturday night?
That would be absolutely awesome, but I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. I think Colin McGarry beats him. Well,
it'd be you against Colin McGarry on Saturday night instead.
Yeah, he's a great mate of mine. I honestly think he will beat Phil Taylor.
There we have it. Well, beyond this week, what is the plan for the rest of 2023? What events have you got your eye on over the next 6 months or so? And then I guess in the lead up to Lakeside.
I think I'm going to do all the England stuff. I like the England guys. I like Tommy Thompson, Tommy T-Rex, as they call him. I'm going to do all the England darts. I'm going to do things like the Denmark Open, Swedish Open. I'm going to go to a few countries that I've never been to before, and we'll see how it pans out.
Well, Darren, it's a pleasure to have you back on the show. Congratulations on the success that you had last year, and we wish you all the best for this debut in the World Seniors Championship this week and what else is to come in 2023 as well.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thanks again to Darren for joining us. Now on to the World Seniors. The second staging of the World Seniors Championship is this week. We've gone up from 24 to 32 players in the field. We've even got a GOAT playing there this week as well. But who do you fancy to lift the trophy on Sunday night?
Right now, it's a bit hard to pick against Richie Howson right now because he just keeps winning every single seniors event. He has a very tough first round match against David Cameron, but Howson's going to come in with a hot hand. He's going to come in with confidence. There's no reason to think he's not going to be up to the task, even though obviously there'll be a bit more pressure, a bit more on the line than a regular senior tour event. But he won both events. Both of the qualifiers at the past weekend. He won an event as well earlier back in, I think, November. Right now, I think he is the person to beat, and I think he will lift the title. Who does he beat in the final? I think the top half's a little bit more wide open. I think, it's not just Richie Howson in the bottom half that would be live in this event. David Cameron, Darren Johnson, who we just listened to. Leonard Gates is playing really well right now. I don't know who this Costompe player is. I'm sure he's okay. Dave Prinz as well, Martin Adams. There's a lot of players in the bottom half that if they were in the top half, I think would be fancying themselves a bit more. I think the top half is a little bit more wide open. We haven't seen as much from Robert Thornton since winning the title last year. Neil Duff obviously has been playing a bunch of WDF, but there's also some players that we really don't know where their game is right now in the top half, more so than in the bottom half. But I think Robert Thornton will win through the top half again, but I think he goes down in the final. I'm going to go Richie Howson to become World Seniors champion, 5-3 over the reigning World Senior champion, Robert Thornton.
Very interesting. Well, Richie Howson, he's someone that just keeps winning, and he won the Viking Cup at the O2. That was a tournament that I entered. He didn't have to beat me. Make of that what you will. It probably meant that he had a harder draw on the way to winning it. But taking my obvious bias to one side, I don't think we're going to see Co lift this title. I'd love to be proven wrong and be sat here this time next week talking about it for 3 hours. But as I say, we've gone up from 24 players to 32 this year, and we've got a quarter of the field that have come through the qualifiers of the World Seniors Tour that have been put on over the last year. The open events, the rankings, the money list from those events. And we know how those 8 have been playing because they've been playing in those qualifying weekends. And there was one only the weekend before last, and that was the the Richie Howson show. He dominated. He won the 2 qualifiers, even though he'd already qualified, and he averaged around 87, 88 for the weekend. He had some high 90 averages in there as well, and he was someone that really came in front of us in the World Seniors Championship last year. He won through one of the qualifiers, played Martin Adams in the early rounds, I think the last 16 or the quarterfinals, and some unbelievable finishing from Wolfie in that game. I was just having a look back. He had finishes, this was in a best of 5 sets game, of 136, 150, 153, 156, 157. That takes some doing. But the thing that's holding me back from backing Richie Howson too much, like you, is that first round draw. And we touched on it last week. David Cameron, he won the World Seniors Masters last year, beat Phil Taylor in the final. We've also seen him go to Ali Pali, won a match there. That incredible comeback against another Richie in Richie Edhausen. Don't mention the Ali Pali Wasp, or you'll summon Stuart Pike here. But the winner of that match, I think, makes the last session. I think they'll make the semi-finals, but I don't want to back 2 players who are against each other in the first round. It seems like a bit of a cop-out for me. So I'm going to back 1 player from the top half, like you have, 1 player from the bottom half, and we'll see how far they go. Will they go all the way, or will they be leaving Purfleet and going home even before I do on Saturday morning? Top half, I'm going to go like you with Robert Thornton. I think the number 1 seed, defending champion, is a half, which also has Scott Mitchell in it, and he's one of the favourites with the bookies, which we'll come on to in a moment. He was a late call-up to this event, missed out on a tour card at Q School. You've got another player you mentioned there, the reigning WDF World Champion Neil Duff, his debut in the event, and Robert Thornton. He could have to get through both of those players to get through that top section of the draws. So I think we're going to hear a lot of the proclaimers this week, which is never a bad thing. So Robert Thornton, he's my finalist from the top half. Bottom half, you've got Phil Taylor in there, but as you just heard from Darren Johnson, he's backing his friend Colin McGarry to knock him out in the first round. Then it'd either be Darren Johnson or Larry Butler in the second round. And I think it wouldn't surprise me either if we see Phil Taylor out of the tournament before Sunday, because those 2 games, if it is Colin McGarry, if he gets past him, if it's Darren Johnson or Larry Butler, it's a tough section of the draw for him to come through. And Phil Taylor's someone that we've not seen the best of him so far in these events. He has averaged in the 80s for all the games. I'm not quite sure I'm ready to back Phil Taylor to go all the way, but bottom half, I'll go with someone a bit different, someone who is making their debut in this event as well. He's not seeded for it. I'm going to go with Leonard Gates to get through that bottom half. Another player that we saw at Ali Pali, we saw him at the Grand Slam. He's had a lot of stage time recently, turned down Q School this year to take the invite. So that tells you that he is serious about the seniors. He's serious about having a deep run this week. So my final is going to be Robert Thornton against Leonard Gates on Sunday. And my apologies to Co that I've not put you in the final.
Well, I won't complain if you're right about that final. We mentioned Phil Taylor. Darren Johnson mentioned Phil Taylor. He is, despite us all picking against him, once again the favorite with the bookies. And he did make 2 of the 3 televised finals on the senior tour last year. Being that none of us are picking Phil Taylor, who do you think should be the favorite?
Yeah, I think we know where this is going, don't we? This time next week, we are going to be talking about Phil Taylor as the 17-time world champion. But no, I think after that early exit that he had in last year's World Seniors Championship at the Circus Tavern, he said that he was going to go away, put more hours in and make sure he was better next time and more prepared. And credit to him, he made the finals of the Masters, the match play, lost out to David Cameron, lost out to Robert Thornton in the match play final where he had chances to win that game. And I was thinking back to that final. It does seem like a while ago now, and it is, because that match play final was back in July. So we're talking 6-7 months ago since the last televised World Seniors event. He came through extra legs to beat Kevin Painter in the semi-finals and then lost 12-10 to Robert Thornton in that final. And again, Phil didn't quite hit the heights of before. His best average in the match play, that run to the final, was an 88. And we've got players in this field who you'd expect to be throwing 90 plus more often than not. And I think the added match practice, I mentioned the 8 players that came through the qualifiers, that the seniors tour, you've got others there who have been playing more regularly, be it local events in the ADC, the WDF, the Modus League, even PDC events, playing at Q School or Challenge Tour or events like that. And I think that is going to count for a lot. So although Phil, he does carry that aura, the walk-on, the 16-time champion of the world, for some of these players, it will be the first time playing him on TV, the cameras, the stage. That is going to play a part. But looking at the odds, Phil Taylor 9-2, only a slight favourite ahead of Scott Mitchell at 11-2. And I think his pedigree of being on the tour the last 2 years in the PDC says a lot there for his odds. And Robert Thornton, defending champion, 6-1. Martin Adams, finalist last year, 9-1. For me, I'd put Robert Thornton as the favourite based on his performances last year. I know it was a little while ago now, but winning 2 of those 3 titles, I think, should put him as the favourite, beating Phil in one of those finals. Then I'd go for Scott Mitchell, then maybe Martin Adams and David Cameron close behind, then a Richie Houston in there as well, and a Phil Taylor, around about 9-1, 10-1. We just don't know what Phil Taylor is going to turn up this week, and I think that's a question which is probably causing the bookies to worry a little bit, because if he does bring a better game this week, then he will take some stopping.
Yeah, and though it's not just Phil Taylor that we don't know which Phil Taylor or which insert name is going to show up, because a lot of these players we just haven't seen as much about. And the fact, as you mentioned, Scott Mitchell having played the PDC Tour the last couple of years, that is a good point. Like, that is a reason to think he'll be coming in a little bit sharper than some of the other people might. But, I forgot to mention Andy Jenkins when I was going through people in the bottom half. He did he's been off to a very good start this year playing in the Challenge Tour. He did all right at Q School, but he made a deep run on the Challenge Tour, and he's been playing the best darts we've seen from him in a while. So he's another player who's been playing at a higher standard and playing quite a bit of darts and playing it well. Leonard Gates, who you picked to make the final, the same. And I think those are the types of players that should be favored right now. Robert Thornton, as the defending champ, as the winner of the 2 majors, I think he's the one that I would have put. But then I don't think it would have been that much ahead of people like Scott Mitchell, people like Richie Housen, Andy Jenkins, Neil Duff, of course, as well, who've been playing more. They should be the people who are the favorites or among the favorites. But I think it's going to be tough to see someone other than Robert Thornton get that nod as being the one who deserves to be. He's shown that he can win this event. And it wasn't just that, you go back 12 months and he won it. He was also the best player over the course of that entire event, only once averaging under 90. He's done it before. That should count. Obviously will count for something in the minds of people, in the minds of the bookies. But again, he skipped Q School and he did not play as much as he had the previous year. He was obviously in a much better form entering this event. There are question marks surrounding him. I'm picking him to make the final, but we don't know exactly where his game is. But he should be the favorite. He did it last year, and he did it convincingly last year. If I had to put my money on someone, all odds being equal, I would put it on him. Anything else for this week?
Well, I'll try and keep it a bit shorter than last week's outro from me, but thank you to our guests, to Darren. Great to have him back on the show. We'll try not to leave it 6 years again next time. Good luck to him this week as well. And thanks to Matthew Kiernan for his chat with Stephen Burton. Thanks to our sponsor, Dartwolf. If you want more Dynamite Darts content, head on over to dartwolf.tv. Give Dartwolf a follow on Twitter at Dartwolf180. Don't forget, if you're still in our Premier League Last Man Standing competition, retweet our pin tweet and reply hashtag Last Man Standing with the player that you're backing. Good luck to all those still involved. And lastly, if you go into the Circus Tavern this week, I'll see you there. I'll be making the trip to Purfleet with Inside the WDF's Andrew Sinclair on Wednesday evening. We're there for the Thursday and Friday, both sessions each day. And I mentioned on Twitter, anyone who wants some weekly Dartscast stickers, come and see me. I'll bring some with me, and it'll be great to meet some of our listeners in person and thank you in person for supporting us. So yeah, can't wait to be at the tavern to see the GOAT Coast on Pay bring out the crane after beating John Part. And if he wins on Friday night, I might just have to extend my stay for another 2 days so I can be there to see him lift the trophy. If not, we'll have a 1 hour interview with Co on next week's show talking about being a World Seniors champion. And until then, enjoy the darts.
Yeah, and just before we go, I need to make a correction so that we don't get added by Dan Dawson. We kept saying Robert Thornton. What we meant to be saying was all-time great Robert
Definitely,
Thornton.
Yes.
So Dan Dawson, if you're listening, don't add us. We messed up. We're correcting it now. Obviously, everyone, hope you enjoy the World Seniors, the Premier League, the first weekend of Pro Tour. As Alex said, we'll be back next week to recap all of that and look ahead to more Pro Tour and more Premier League and more darts as 2023 continues to fly at us. Hang tight for another day, because if you're listening to this when we drop on Wednesday, there's still a day to go that you'll need to hang tight through, but then you can enjoy the darts. When you're done with that, enjoy the darts some more.
When is this interview going out?
So this will be out Wednesday morning's the plan.
Wednesday. So to anybody who's listening, don't forget to tune into the World Seniors World Championships. I think it's 9th to the 12th of February at the famous Circus Tavern in Essex. Live on BT Sport, BBC Red Button, or better still, buy a ticket, come and watch us, and have an absolutely fantastic night with us.